Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of the 49er Industry Chat Series. I'm really excited today. We have a great speaker for you, Erin Cross. Hi, Erin.
Hello.
And I can't wait to get into the topic, leveraging your journalism degree and everything that means. So let me start off by introducing you, reading out your bio here so everyone can kind of get a little bit acquainted, and then we'll get into it.
Perfect.
So Erin is a demand generation manager for CivicPlus. In 2012, she graduated from CSULB with her bachelor's degree in journalism. Since graduation, she's worked in finance, education, automotive, tech, SaaS, and gov-tech. Her roles have spanned from marketing specialist to project manager to demand generation, giving her a wide scope of marketing knowledge. Hi, Erin. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right into it. Could you start off by just giving me a little bit of background on yourself? What was your life like what was your experiences? What led you to CSULB?
I had always wanted to go to Cal State Long Beach once I entered high school. I'm from Southern California and grew up there my entire life. So I didn't really want to leave. I had always said I never wanted to move. Spoiler alert, I do not live in Southern California anymore. But up until that point, I was like, I don't want to move. I want to stay in Southern California. And Cal State Long Beach always had like the widest amount of majors and stuff that I was interested in. I was also brought up trying to be as financial savvy as I could. So I was somewhere affordable was high on the list for me as well. And Cal State Long Beach kind of checked off that box for me. So um, in high school, I applied to three schools, I think, my senior year of college or high school. And Cal State Long Beach was one of them. Fullerton was one of the other ones. And then Cal State San Marcos. But I really just applied to the two others just to have one to fall back on, if not two. And I was actually rejected from Cal State Long Beach
Oh
in
my
high school.
goodness.
Yeah. So I was a little heartbroken when I got that letter, but I was like, okay, I have two other schools to go to. But I wasn't really excited about them. One just didn't have the list of majors that I was hoping for, just in case I changed my mind or wanted to explore a little bit. So that deterred me a little. And then the other school I just wasn't nearly as excited about. It was another great school, had plenty of programs and stuff to choose from, but I just didn't get that excitement over it. You know, by the time it came to decision making, my parents had decided I needed a little bit more maturing. That's my
Mhm.
nice way of putting it. And they said, like, you're not really excited about these schools. Why are you going to pick up your life and move if you're not excited about it? And I said, that's fair. But what do you mean? So they said, well, we're going to have you enroll in community college. And I was pretty upset about it because as a high school senior, everyone's talking about where they're going to school and they're excited to move, dorms, all that stuff. And I wasn't going to do that. So I was kind of upset about it. In hindsight, it was the best decision that we could have made as a family. I thank my parents for it all the time. Thank you for making me go to community college first. Because then by the time I was a sophomore and it was time to apply to transfer, I got into Cal State Long Beach. And really that was I applied to six schools at that point because I was like, look, we need some variety just to see. But once I got my Cal State Long Beach acceptance, I was like, well, I don't care about any of the others. Um, so that's how I got to Cal State Long Beach. I had some stops along the way, but I got there eventually.
No, and I think that's so great. I think a lot of our students, we have a big transfer community, right? Like we have a lot of students who, that story may sound exactly like their story. So Thanks so much for sharing that. And I kind of just want to go a little bit more into that. What was it like being a transfer student? What was your student experience like here at CSULB?
Yeah, I mean, I think the amount of effort that they put in, even when I was there, it was 12, 13 years ago, I was starting at Cal. They had so many things that were positioned for transfer students, like getting to know other transfer students, and just like our orientation was for transfer students specifically. So you felt from the jump that you were already around people that were very similar to you, which I think scares a lot of people that are transferring, because I mean the age range of people that I transferred in with is all over the place, right? And I mean, going to community college, you kind of experience that too, is everyone's kind of in a different phase of life. So when you're switching schools, you're like, okay, how many people are going to be like me that like are transferring in? They're juniors. We don't know anybody. Some of us are commuting to school. Some of us are just freshly moving into Long Beach and we don't know a whole lot of people. But I met a lot of people really fast. I think a lot of that has to do with being in the journalism program. Transferring in as a junior, you're already with a small nucleus of people. And we started going to all the same classes together. We were studying together really quickly. So, I just felt very welcomed right away. It was very easy for me to make friends and connections. So, all the fears that I had were pretty much dissolved within like a couple weeks of starting school. So,
That's great.
love that.
Yeah. And I mean, I know that you had that tight cohort, but were you able to like be in any other student organizations, or did you have any professors that were really influential? Anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to do a whole lot of clubs and stuff. I think for me, I was working full time and going to school.
Wow,
Um,
that's a tall order.
yes. And I chose that on my own. So I did that to myself. But again, I don't regret that. So, but I had a lot of really amazing professors. All of them had experience in the journalism field that they were able to bring into the classroom. Um, Danny Paskin, for example, he was one of my professors. I'm still friends with him on Facebook. He was very instrumental in getting me through school in the time frame that I wanted to get through it. Just making sure, like, did I meet my requirements? Am I missing something? I swear I overlooked it. What can I do? He was always very calming for me at that time of my life when I was very all up in arms and over the place. So yeah, he's someone that I appreciated greatly. And then just uh, several of my other professors, they had experience in sports journalism, which was something I was super excited about. Gary Metzger did an awesome class for us on sports journalism, and we were his first class that he taught at Cal State Long Beach when he introduced that. So I thought that was really cool. Got to go on a couple of really fun field trips and stuff. Field trips in college are way better. We went to the LA Times, so that was amazing. Just things like that. So yeah, and then I think like I said, some of the people that I met there that were my fellow classmates made a huge difference. So just getting connected, I think, was a huge, huge plus for me.
Great. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, eventually, at some point, all of our journeys on campus at CSULB come to an end, and it's, time to get that first job. Um, and it can be sometimes a scary time for folks. But what was that process like getting your first job? And where did it lead? Can you take us a little bit through your journey to tell us like how'd you get to where you are now? And was it an intentional move, or was it, did you find your way there?
It was interesting. So like after I graduated, I moved home after the summer. So I spent the rest of the summer just like, we're gonna enjoy our last college summer. We're gonna work but we're gonna go do fun things and all that. So I had moved back to my hometown I'm from the Temecula area. So I moved back there. I'd been applying for jobs and I knew I was probably going to commute to some degree, or I would just end up moving depending on where I got a job. But it was just safer bet to move home. Um, and I landed a part-time job initially doing some social media um, management for a realtor. And that was fine. But I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, I need to get a full-time position and things like that. So I got presented with an opportunity to join a startup company, which I knew going into it, I was not going to be in marketing then, which was like in my mind already my goal. But I was taking like a customer service job, which everyone should take a customer service job, I think. Especially like now, the appreciation that I have for the customer opinion has changed so much that I think that job has opened my eyes along the journey. So yeah, I was in a customer service role at a startup company. It was amazing, even though it wasn't the job I thought it was going to be long term for me. I worked with like five of my best friends from high school, and I actually even worked with my mom. So
Wow.
yeah, that was fun. I don't regret that at all. But the job itself was very fast paced, and I was like, I need to slow down. I need to do something. So I got a chance to be a partner marketing specialist at an education company um, that worked with primarily online education. And I was excited about that because I was going to get my feet wet, and I had gained some experience working with partners at my customer service job. So they were super interested in my experience. So um, that kind of threw me in there. And I spent a couple years doing that. I had a couple of different marketing specialist jobs, and all those were kind of similar. I was doing a lot of webinar planning, outreach to our partners or our B2B side of the business. And I was doing some content creation and overseeing it, but just really at the very beginning of all of that. So after a few years of that, I was like, I think I need something different, but in marketing. So I was like, project management sounds awesome. But as a creative person, project management, it's fine for a little while. Um, and because I worked in project management for a marketing department, I got to learn all of the different positions within a marketing org. So I got a really like big appreciation for the creative team and our demand gen team, events, because I was helping them put together their all of their work and keep it on track and on time. So I got to learn a lot from that position. I realized I like using the creative side of my brain. So I was ready to go back into a creative role where I started getting into demand gen, and I was a content specialist. So putting together content for our sales team to use for their B2B business. And I really enjoyed that quite a bit. Um, but content creation, especially when you're talking about the same thing over and over again, can be difficult. So that's what you get when you work in house versus like an agency where you get a little bit of variety. So that's kind of where I got to now, where I'm in a demand generation manager role. I work at a company that has 11 different products. I am in charge of demand generation for one product. The reason most of my coworkers are over a couple, but I'm over one because I speak to the most um, personas. So I have the most different kind of buyer profiles. So that's kind of where it's landed me. And I'm super appreciative because we have a marketing project manager that we have to work with. And she's a bit younger. So I feel like I've been able to, like, hey, I see you. I know that this job is really hard, but you have a really unique job. So please don't think because you're one of the younger ones on the team that your perspective doesn't matter. You see so much that the rest of us don't see. So please speak up whenever you can. And then like understanding the creative process and all that. But also getting in on the business side and sales side is something that I enjoy, being a demand generation manager. So that's my condensed version of my career journey.
I like it. I like it. Well, let's expand out a small piece of that then. Um, what does a typical day look like in your position? What does it look like to be a demand generation manager?
Yeah, I think for if you asked like a lineup of demand generation managers, you get a different answer from all of us.
Oh, really?
Which is that's one of the things that I like, is that this role allows flexibility and freedom. Especially at my company, we're literally told, hey, if you want to try something, you have the budget, go ahead. So for me, one of the things, for like, if I were to start beginning of my day, I always like to check in where we left off from the day before. Being in a demand generation role, we do have plenty of numbers that drive us in our business making decisions. So looking at some of our marketing metrics just to see how are we doing for the month? Are we on pace to hit our number generation goals for the end of the month? If we are, amazing. What's propelling that for us? If we're not, where are we missing the mark? So that way I can make adjustments if I need to, and I can make them early instead of later. So that's always something that I do right away at the beginning of the day. Um, and for my company, we work on a month to month basis as far as campaign creation. So one of the next things, just depending on where we're at in the month, either I need to review my campaign submissions to make sure that I don't have any questions from my project manager. If I need to clarify any sort of like marketing audiences that we're trying to reach, or review the content that one of the copywriters put together just to make sure it's correct, I'm doing those things next, just so I give them plenty of time to make those fixes. Because if I don't, that just delays our project and we want to be on time. So that's usually what I do next. And then most of the time I have a mix of meetings that are usually strategy driven. Being in the demand generation role, I have to understand what sort of things are going on with our product. Um, do we have any big updates that are coming? Are we changing something that would affect our marketing campaigns and materials that I want, that I'm using, that I need to update? So kind of being in the know of product, sales, and any other sort of updates is very important. They also want to know what my strategy is. So if they can be flexible on anything, we kind of work together, because all of our goals like are meshed together. Sales and marketing are working together, products working with marketing, and we all are just kind of orchestrating this dance to make sure that we're all on the same page. So quite a bit of strategy meetings for me as well. And then usually some connection points with my fellow demand generation managers, even though they're working on different products and they work with different people. I have some of my fellow demand generation managers that are excellent at putting together webinars and topics, and I usually need some help because I get stumped on those. So we do a lot of brainstorming as far as like what's working for you, or if you were to sell to this persona, how would you approach this topic, or what's something that they're talking about that I haven't reached out to them about yet. So what do you recommend? So a lot of collaboration, and then just like strategy as well. So I'm constantly trying to see what people in our space that are shopping for our product, what they're looking for, what are some of their pain points, and things like that. So quite a bit of research and comparing like what other people that are selling a similar product as mine, what are they doing, what are they saying, why did someone choose them over us, or vice versa, just because it helps drive a lot of the decisions that I make as far as how we're positioning our product and how we're approaching prospects. So a little bit of data, a lot of strategy, a little bit of research. It's usually how my day goes.
Wow, and that sounds like a full day.
It's very full.
Well, I think that especially with folks who have jobs that are, so involved and have so many aspects to it and so many moving parts, it can be hard to do that sort of work-life balance,
Yeah.
in your position and in the line of work that you do. What is that work-life balance like? How do you manage it?
Yeah, and I not to say that I'm not fortunate. I have a very flexible work schedule from my employer, which is extremely helpful. I think, and I know that's not something that everybody gets the chance to have. So I will attribute a big chunk of it to that. But even when I didn't have the flexible work option and I was working in similar roles, I think just defining your workday, picking a starting time that works for you, as long as it's within company guidelines, picking a starting time that works for you and defined end time is huge. I think early on in my career, I didn't do that. And I felt very burnt out very fast at my roles just because it was like I never said no. And you can say no, but I would also let me do it right now. um, I think getting to know the people that you work with, and understanding what their asks are when they're, hey, can you do this for me? I think the biggest thing that you can answer back is, I can, but when do you need this by? So you can vocalize, like, if it's today, I'm too busy today, but can I get it to you tomorrow? But kind of putting the ball back in their court and understanding when do you need it by, so then you can then prioritize things that you're working on, um, to fit around that just based on your schedule is super important. um, and I think the other thing too is just not being afraid to understand if you're feeling burnt out and taking time off. I was very afraid to do that as a new into the workforce employee. But I realized over time that if I'm burnt out, I'm not doing my best work anyway. So why am I sitting in front of my desk, in front of my computer when I'm not performing? So um, I try to do like once a month, like a mental health or like relaxation day, just so I can not have to run around with this work schedule plus this kid's school schedule. Just take a breather and do what I want to do for a day. And that usually helps me get over that
Well,
really fast.
that is so great. That's like incredibly fortunate, and maybe that's something that folks should really, when they're looking at employers or when they're looking at making a job switch or taking a job, they should be asking those kinds of questions, right? Like,
Yeah.
how flexible are with scheduling? So,
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Well, one of my favorite things to ask during these chats, is this, and it's a two-parter, so feel free to take your time. Um, but what would you say is the most challenging part of your job, and what is the most rewarding?
I think one of the most challenging parts is, for me, is trying to work with so many different teams and trying to understand personalities while you're doing that. I think um, one of the things that I tell people all the time is there's so much in learning and understanding and forming relationships with the people that you work with that will make your life easier at work. Just because, especially now, 'cause most people are working remote, our company is fully remote. So we see each other like once a year in person. But, taking the time to kind of network within your own organization makes a huge difference because there's people that I normally typically wouldn't work with. Um, but if I take the time to network and spend like 30 minutes with one person like every other week, you slowly start to form connections with people across the company. And I think that if you don't do that, it becomes more challenging because you don't know who to ask questions to. Um, or if you're running into an issue, like trying to hunt down the right person can be difficult, but you kind of make those connections and so I think that that's always a challenge, is getting to know people and forming those relationships so you can effectively work together, because understanding is one of the biggest ways to work effectively together. Um, so I think that probably is it. And I think the only other thing in a marketing role like mine, um, is just trying to keep up with the ever changing landscape of it, because it's always changing. So
Yeah, what worked yesterday might not be working today.
yes, yes. And sometimes you're like, I literally don't know why. It's just today it's not it. So just trying to like stay open-minded and know that it can change day to day. So not to get discouraged, I think is another one. I think by far the most rewarding thing, especially about my current job and why I enjoy it so much, is we specialize in helping local governments. So knowing that we're producing things that are helping them and making their lives easier is super rewarding for me. And the company that I work for, is very much driven by our motto of making government work better. So just some of the stories that we hear, it's super refreshing. And the success stories that they share are things that our products help them achieve. I I love. So we actually just had a town hall meeting today, and we got to hear a couple of those stories actually. And it's always fun to see like who on our team was able to help and how they helped and all of that. So that's definitely the most rewarding for me.
Could you share some of those stories or one of those stories if we don't name names?
Yeah, like there was a couple times, one of our products that we have in our platform is a mass notification product. So if you're signed up for notifications from your city, for example, there's a power outage or something like that, that could be our product. Not we have a couple competitors, but it could be ours. Um, but we had a customer that they had like an unexpected power outage or something, and they couldn't get the notification out from their system. So they contacted someone in our company and was like, "Can you please send this to our city for us? Because we cannot do it. We have no power. Literally, no one can we can't get online to do it." So our team jumped in and helped disseminate the information, um, to people in the community. So like stuff like that, I'm like, that's so great that we were just able to like log in and help them and do it for them in a time of need, and stuff like that. So that was one for sure where that was like so nice. But things
No,
like that.
that's great. Like you can really feel like, hey, I'm helping to keep the pipes running
Yeah.
and power on and yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, that is certainly something that, especially folks who, maybe had a, political science background or a journalism background, like that's the kind of stuff that, you kind of think of. But, I also wanted to touch on like where you work is not journalism.
No, it's
So what how do you find, the skills that you learned going through your program? And how transferable are your skills that you learned here at the beach, and how do they play a part in what you do every day?
yeah, I think, before I went to Cal State Long Beach, I thought I wanted to be an English teacher. So that was all I thought was English major or education, going to be an English teacher. And just after a few classes in college, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I want to do something that involves like the business side of things, because I was getting into that. Um, but I still liked writing. So I was like, what can I do that kind of combines those things? So I landed on journalism, and I have a communications minor. Um, so I love communications as well. So I was like, I need to figure out something that kind of lets me do all these things. Um, So after starting my first job, because it was a startup, I did get to do some things to help the marketing team at that time. And I think it was then I realized like, okay, this is how you combine creativity and business is marketing. So I would love to do this as work. So, one of the things that they came to me a lot was writing and editing. They're like, hey, we need to write something and we're stumped, or we don't have someone that can write this for us right now. Can you help us? Or can you please edit this? Someone wrote it. The actual stuff in there is what we need, but we need it to sound better. So, like just from my first job right away, I'm editing and I'm reviewing and I'm reading and I'm giving feedback. And while that wasn't my actual role, I felt like my skills were being used right away. So I was like, okay, I enjoy this a lot. So, once I got to some of my middle roles, my marketing specialist roles, um, I'm having to write more and putting together concise content, which that's the whole idea of journalism. Like, how can we concisely convey important information to people? And that's something you have to do in marketing every single day. I know that I'm not going to get someone that's going to leisurely sit down and read a full page and a half of something that I wrote. I need to get to the point and I need to get to the point quick. So that's something that I've utilized every single day, especially writing emails or trying to get um, social media posts that are like catchy and to the point so people engage with them. Um, Something I use frequently. As far as communications goes, I'm constantly having to work internally, and that was something that I um, focused on with my communications minor was interpersonal and communication. And I'm using those communication skills every single day. I'm conducting those meetings and trying to stay organized, on point, be empathetic to people that I'm talking to, trying to problem solve, all of those things. So I mean, that's every single day. Um, and like my journalism degree, I think I learned some creative ways because um, CSULB has awesome like video journalism, photojournalism, all of those sorts of classes. Bringing those kinds of ideas to the table and having a creative person help execute those with me has created new content with like things that we haven't done before and thinking outside of the box when people have been very, oh, we've always just done an ebook or a white paper. I'm like, why don't we do a video? A video would be awesome. And we could slice it and do this. And it would be a great, like, different medium to use for like a customer story. And, people are like, oh, I didn't think of that. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So, just like things like that, I literally can find something and attribute it to my education in some way, shape, or form every single day.
So great. No, that's I think that's an important point of like, it may not have been what you thought about when you were at CSULB, but it's still some stuff you do every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so in your role, and in your career in general, your journey in general, how important have you found things like mentoring or networking?
Actually, really important. I didn't realize how much I was missing as far as like mentoring and networking until I got my current job. There wasn't really a huge opportunity to do that at my other companies. Either, we didn't have the resources for it or a person that was trying to develop those programs. But at my current job, we have like a couple of different leadership style courses that we can take, and you take them in a cohort with other people in the company. So like I just went through the first part of like a leadership of self, since I do not manage other people. I just manage my own workload and my own projects. Um, so it was 4 weeks worth, and it was 1 day a week for an hour and a half where we got together, we learned, and then we did some breakout sessions. And it was amazing. And then we have part 2 coming up where we'll do 4 more topics and go through that whole process again in the same cohort. And then we get to graduate with our leadership certification. So that's something that I really look forward to. And then the other thing that my company does that I wish more people would do, I was talking about networking and connecting with people outside of your department. We have a tool that's just connected to Slack that we use to communicate with each other that every 2 weeks connects you to someone else in the company, and you're just supposed to have a 30-minute meeting with them. And the goal is that everyone that gets paired does it, just to see how many meetings the company can hold with people across different departments. So they're called donuts, and I love them because you can talk about work, you can talk about your dog, how long you've been in your position, where you want to travel. I've had the wildest array of conversations in those, but I've got to know so many people, and it's amazing. Especially like when we do our big company meetings, I'm like, oh, I met them, or I know that person. And so I think networking is huge, whether you have to kind of do it yourself, or maybe your company can help facilitate it, or maybe you suggest it, because it's key, I think, in being successful in the professional world. So
Yeah, no, and I think that that's just one of those skills that are it, networking is just one of those things that folks kind of feel weird about or don't
yeah.
really know how to approach it or how to start it. But I mean, for those who may feel that way or may feel hesitant, like, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think just like from my experience, I still remember trying to network like as a fresh like new grad, even like a few years in. It feels awkward. Um, if you can find someone, a mentor that's older than you, that's amazing at networking, latch on to that person. Because I had, like, for example, one of my boss at my first marketing role, when I was in the education space, he was a social butterfly at any event that you would go to. So when him and I had to conference and we had to network, I was like, I need to follow him. I need to learn. I need to understand how he does this because he makes it look so easy. Um, so I think just observing people when you're in a group setting like that and seeing how the natural networkers kind of work is huge, because then you'll realize, like, okay, he's literally just going up to them and being like, "Hey, I'm so and so. What company are you working at, or where are you from?" And then the just kind of flows, finds one thing to latch on to. So I would just find someone that you think is a role model in that. And I think the other thing too, for me, it doesn't have to be work related. I think one of
Mhm.
the best ways to connect is finding a common ground outside of work and then kind of working towards that.
Towards work.
Yes, work towards the work part, but find like a common ground outside of it. And it opens like their personality and a whole different side of the person. So I always try to find something personal. And then that way you can always bring it up again in the future. Like, hey, how's that hobby of yours? Or how's your dog? Um, Things like that. Just find something important to them.
That's awesome. No, great advice. So especially in a field where you're doing marketing and you know uh trying to find what works for folks and how to reach folks and how to communicate with folks in that type of field. I think that one of those big hot buzzwords or the buzz topics of the day is the role of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How is AI impacting your field, and is it a good thing or a bad thing?
If you ask anyone that works on my team, we all use Chat GPT. Because it's honestly a great tool, especially when you're someone like a demand generation manager. We're constantly having to put together campaigns and ideas, and sometimes getting a professional or like outside point of view makes a huge difference, even if it is using ChatGPT. Like, here's a great example of how me and my teammates use it. We have to do webinars quite frequently because it's something that's really valuable to our sales team. Sometimes they're topics that I don't know a whole lot about. So if I can give at least a detailed description to ChatGPT and say, can you please outline a webinar for me on, here's the description, I get a really great first draft of an outline for slides. And I can just, I still have to go through and edit it so it makes sense for what we have, because they're just, giving me a general outline, but it saves me the biggest headache in tail chasing, all of that. And it makes me work faster through it. And it's not something that I dread, because before I would have been like, I really don't want to do this because I don't know who to talk to. It's something I don't know a whole lot about. I don't want to do it. So I would just procrastinate it. Now I'm like, oh, let me just go over here and ask ChatGPT, and they're going to help me be my little stand-in marketer here for a minute. So things like that were like, it's great for generating different ideas for like subject lines for emails. If you leave it up to me, I'm going to use the same thing. I'm like, okay, someone's already gotten this sort of subject line from us. I need something different. So, jump over. I need, 10 creative email subject lines that talk about this. And again, you can edit it down, which all of us do, but it gives some fresh ideas and things I didn't think about. So I think it's definitely helpful. It's not replacing the things that we're doing, but it's definitely helping us think. It's helping take away some of the guesswork on things. So it's helping us work more efficiently, is what I think. So
Cool. Well, glad to hear that it's, it's a tool, and it's a positive tool, it sounds like.
we love it.
Well, we are getting to about that time where we're wrapping it up now. 45 minutes flies right on by. So the last question that I love to ask towards the end of this for everyone is, if you could go back to yourself while you were about to graduate from CSULB, or maybe you just graduated from CSULB, and you could give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one thing I would have told myself was to stay connected to the alumni association, because I did stray from that. I didn't jump right into that. And like the resources now, I'm like, man, this is really awesome. So yeah, I'm like, still to this day, I'm like looking at some of the stuff that the alumni association offers, and I'm like, this is great. Like, people are using this. So I think that for sure. And I think just like reminding myself that there's no linear path on your professional journey. Just looking at my classmates, even from Cal State Long Beach, like we have the same degree, me and my friends, and we've all done such different things with them. And nothing is permanent either, because if anything, I've learned in the last like 4.5 years, what you think is what you're going to be doing one day could be totally different a year from now. So I think just knowing that your path might have some turns and stuff it's fine. Just keep moving forward is what's most important. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Erin. I think that is fantastic advice. And I also think that there was just so much out of this this webinar that so many people can take something from this. So I want to thank you for that. And of course, thank you for the plug for the for CSULB alumni. We
of
do
course,
a lot of great stuff. So make sure for folks who are tuning in, make sure you're following up with us and checking us out. But thank you so much, Erin, for joining us. And for you in the audience, thank you so much for joining us as well. We look forward to catching you next time. Have a good one.
thank you.
Bye.